Welcome back to another episode of the Kickass Relationship Show. And today I am super excited about our topic. We are talking all about being an angry wife, those mad moments that we get. I have worked with so many women over the years that tend to have kind of this frustration that has built up and this anxiety and this anger, and it's not to be unexpected. We have a lot of stuff that we deal with and a lot of pressures on ourselves, but it doesn't have to stay that way. So the guest that I am bringing on, I actually have met her and I adore her. She's coming all the way from Denmark live. Her name is Maya Haywood. And she is a self-made, and we're going to find out about this, but she is a self-made make love, not war coach. Who would have thought? And she specializes in anger and destructive behavioral patterns and helping you change that. So that's why this is such an important episode for so many of us. So let's go ahead and let's bring her on. And you all remember how sometimes I have a hard time with this technical stuff. So here we go. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Midori.
How are
Hi,
you?
Midori.
There you are. Okay, so Amanda, tell us about, first of all, tell us what made you get into this subject matter? Why did you decide to become a coach for angry wives?
Yes. Well, I was stuck making war with my husband and my kids for, I think, almost 7 years until we really hit a low point, and I knew I had to change because I saw the damage it did to my children. And so that's what really started it all for me. And I came interested in the topic, and I looked around at other couples, and it seemed like everyone had the same problems. So I really dug down into it, and I interviewed you, for an example, with my Make Love Not War shows. And what I found was actually this: it takes one to know one, meaning it takes an angry wife to help an angry wife. Because the people I got in contact with, they were so relieved and happy, and they were like, I've tried everything and no one understands me, and breathing exercises, and that just doesn't work. If you have this type of anger that me and my people do, you really need to look at it the way I look at it in order to help them.
Okay. So, all right. This is awesome. Okay. So, Amanda, you know I'm going to make you go there. So, tell us, expand on what you just said. So you have to understand the person and you got to go there. So what is it that makes, give us some of the psychology behind and some of the mannerisms behind a wife who is angry. Help us understand a little bit more about them.
Okay. So it's kind of like an addiction. We don't really have a choice over the matter in the instance when we lash out and anger takes over. It's kind of like we become obsessed. So I treat it like an addiction, not to take away responsibility. That's not what we need to do. We need to be honest, like honesty, responsibility, and choice. So first of all, we need to be honest. Okay, I'm super angry. I have no control over my emotions when I get this way, and we have to get real about how we feel. Also, the fact that we might be revengeful and like hurtful and we want to get him back, and just we need to be real about how we feel. So that's step number one. Yeah. And step number two is to take responsibility. As soon as you take responsibility, you stop thinking about your own hurt for just a split second and you think about your partner's perspective. So when you're really, really hurt, all you see is your hurt, right? Mm-hmm. Like it hurts so much you don't see that there's anything else there. So you don't see it from his side. You don't ask, why does he shut down? You're just like, oh, he doesn't love me anymore. Oh, that hurts. I'm going to get you back, or you go into defense. I'm never going to let him do that to me again. And you're all about how sad and heartbroken you are. But as soon as you ask yourself, why does he shut down? As soon as you try to take responsibility and see things from his perspective, you forget about your own hurt for long enough to look at his side of things. And when you do that, you actually tell your brain that you are empowered and that you have control over the situation. Because when you're in that pain, when you just feel pain and you lash out because it's like, why doesn't he love me anymore? And I'm trying all these things, and you're having your pity party, and you're telling your brain that you have no power or control over the situation. You're telling your brain that you're sad and that it's his fault. So by definition, if something has been done to you and it's his fault, then you're out of control. over the situation.
It's kind of that victim mentality, right?
Yeah, and as soon as you try to ask yourself, why does he shut down, or see things from his perspective, you bring your power back to you and you become empowered again.
That's huge, because I deal with a lot of people, Amanda, that it can be males and females, where they have so much anger and frustration and hurt and fear that they stay in this world, which I call victim mentality. And just like you said, the problem with victim mentality is that releases our control, that releases us being responsible for it, because we're pointing fingers, right? It's his fault that I feel this way. It's her fault. It's not fair. We hear those kind of, that kind of languaging. And so what you just said is so huge as far as helping us gain that power back, gain that control back, and know that we have it. We have it within us to change that. So, okay, where do I want to go with this? Because I have so many questions. Okay, so those were steps 1, and we haven't even gotten to 2 yet, right?
2 is take responsibility, and you can start that by just asking yourself, why does he shut down? So first you go through how you feel. Ow, I'm hurt. Why doesn't he love me anymore? I really want the loving connection back. We kind of get desperate to get the loving connection back. And that's where it goes wrong, because we go into desperate mode. We just want the loving connection back. We're thinking that love is a scarcity, that it's running out of, you need it back right now because you feel so bad. And if you dig really deep into that, what I found is that when I asked myself, why does he shut down? I knew it was due to something I said or did. And that made me understand why I was so desperate to get the loving connection back. I wanted to wrong my own mistakes. I couldn't see it, but deep down I knew that I messed it all up again. I felt like a failure at love. That was actually what caused me to be so desperate to get the loving connection back. And once we understand that, it's easier to not have an agenda, because if your husband shuts down, and you're eager to get him back, you're still telling him that he's doing something wrong because you want him out and he's not ready. So he's still feeling blamed. And that's the whole issue for him, is that he's being told in so many ways, directly and indirectly, that he's doing something wrong. And I know I'm very, very good at that. And I don't even notice it, or didn't used to. So when I was trying to make up with him, I was like, oh, I'm coming to you, trying to get you to open up again. And why don't you want to come out of your shell? Why are you still shut down? But I was on my own agenda. So the moment that I just had trust and I was able to let go of that, from his perspective, what he wants in that period of time when he shut down, he wants me to shut up. So he wants silence. That builds up trust for him to come out again. And once I saw that I was on my own agenda trying to get him out of his shell, because I needed to fix my own mistakes, because deep down I knew it was my fault that he shut down due to something I said or did. It wasn't like just happening out of the blue. So once I figured that out, I was able to just really trust and wait for him to come out. And he came out sooner the less I tried, because I wasn't pulling him out on my own agenda, telling him that he's still doing something wrong when he just needed his time out to come back to me.
Okay. So talk to us a little bit more about that. So you said, instead of us trying to pull it out, come on, you need to talk to me. We need to communicate, right? I mean, that's a big thing. Yeah. You got to communicate. So kind of walk us through what that looks like. Like, would you come to him and say something and just say, hey, I'm going to give you some space? Walk us through a little bit of how we should practice that technique.
Well, I think it's important to get real about how you feel. So if you're desperate, reacting out of desperation or insecurity, you're going to repel anything that you want. So you're not going to get it. But I think we need to understand, right now I'm acting out of desperation. Why am I so desperate to get the loving connection back right this second, this minute? It's not like our love is going to be gone by tomorrow if I don't get it back now. It's been there for so long, right? So understand why you're acting so desperate, or understand if you're having a pity party. It's hard in the middle of the party, but once you're able to gain your senses, understand that you're acting out of insecurity, and that's the variable. He's the same as he's always been. He's not doing anything different, really. It's you that's changing. It's your insecurity, and it's the evidence that you're finding that's really driving you to this problem, because when you're insecure, you look for evidence that he doesn't love you, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the stories that you're telling yourself. So it really starts with the stories that you tell yourself. And it's easiest to spot them if you get real about how you feel. So just start with, how do I feel? Oh, he doesn't hurt me. Why doesn't he love me anymore? And just notice where you're at, and wait for him to come back if he's shut down, or have trust. Or just ask yourself, why does he act the way he does? Why is he shut down? Once you ask yourself that question, you're no longer focusing on your own hurt. So you take your eyes off and look outward. And that gives you responsibility in that instance. But you have to be able to get your hurt down a little bit and not focus on that so much, and just look at it from his perspective. Then you're automatically taking responsibility and being more empowered. So you kind of take blame out of the equation because you take responsibility. So people tend to draw the whole picture. If I say A, you'll say B. If I say B, you'll say A. So by taking responsibility, you're taking blame away. It's not like you're blaming yourself, but it can look like you're blaming yourself, but you're really taking blame out of the whole equation. And that leaves room for the reconciliation and to just let him, love you instead of him being on the defensive because you're blaming him.
Okay. And then what is number 3?
Choice. Fail and recommit. That's the step. I have 12 steps to make love, not war. So you'll start in step 1, and step 12 is called fail and recommit, but you get there all the time and you bounce right back. So fail and recommit is what we do all the time. So you get angry. That's okay. It's not the crime. It's the cover up. We lash out. We get angry. That's who we are. But once you start making excuses and justifications immediately after, oh, but no one can live like this. Just if you act bad, you act bad. That's okay. But it's the justification and excuses either in your head or out loud to your husband or your children. After you lash out or you get triggered, then I'd say to my oldest son, then I'd still be blaming him because I was making excuses for the way I acted instead of just coming clean and I acted badly. We do the same with our husbands, right?
Right.
So we get angry. That's okay. But it's the excuses that we need to bust in our head, the stories that we tell ourselves either before or after. So before, we'll be telling ourselves, no one can live like this. I've tried everything. I give up. So you kind of justify it before you start blaming, right? Mm-hmm. Or you justify it afterwards. So you act like an asshole, to be frank, and then you start blaming afterwards to him even more to kind of make it okay. Or you send all these long text messages justifying why you did what you did. But at the end of the day, you acted out of jealousy and insecurity, and it's on you. So
yeah,
the sooner you can fail and recommit to love, the better. So failure is not bad. It's the key to success. It's the justifications and the poor excuses for bad behavior that you make. And by bad behavior, I just mean any behavior that doesn't get you to connection. So you just want to connect as fast as possible, but blaming won't get you there. Acting out of desperation or insecurity won't get you to connection. So anything that's bad behavior is what stands in the way of you connecting with your husband. So that's why it is a choice to either you're making war or you're making love. And when we're making war, meaning we're fighting, we're really screaming to each other, I want to make love to you. I want to make love to you. That's really what we're saying, right?
Right.
So we're both being desperate.
Yeah. And also another thing is when we can be honest, when we can say to our partner, I'm so sorry. I realize this is about me and my behavior and my frustration and anger. Obviously, we have things to talk about. I'm going to give you some space, but I take ownership of this. That takes away the defensiveness. That really, I'm all about communication and learning how to do it effectively. But when you can do that, that makes it so it makes it safer for them to be open to you. They might not come out right then, but it opens up that conversation. So for all of you who are listening to this, obviously this is a really important conversation. I would love for you guys to share it because there are so many people who need to hear this message, who need these tools to hear that someone understands what it's like and that there are solutions to this. So I encourage you to share this episode with your followers so more people hear about this. But okay, so Amanda, tell us more about ways that we can realize, maybe some signs that we can realize that we're being angry wives versus being justified in our frustration. Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, I think if you're trying to look for justifications, you're not serving yourself. So forget about justifying anything, really. That's stories that we tell ourselves. And I don't think it gets us to connection or where we want to go. So I get that you're frustrated and you feel stuck, and it seems logical to kind of sum up that it's okay the way we feel, but it's just not serving you. To just focus on yourself and what you can do and forget about anything that your partner needs to do or change. Because as soon as you look at what he needs to develop in him, he's not looking there. You can be sure of that. So just look at yourself and what you can do, because that's what you have control over, and that will leave him room for changing. So this is the number one belief I think we need to change. He doesn't need to change, but he will once you change the stories that you tell yourself in your head, the conversations you're having with yourself to justify your being angry. It really comes down to us feeling like a failure at love on a deeper level. And that's what we're acting out of. We're so frustrated, and it feels so bad to look at the fact that we cannot protect and love the ones that we love the most. We feel like a failure. And that's really why we're blaming, because deep down we're blaming ourselves, but it hurts too much to look at. So you rather point to something else for being the reason, or it's your fault. Like, think about the fact when you need to blame someone and there's a question of fault, where does that come from? It really comes from, but we're really, really sad that we're such a failure at love. But failure is not bad. You can celebrate failure. You just fail and recommit. A.K. Hendricks says commitment should really be called recommitment. So failure is not bad, and we're going to do that our entire life. It's the justifications and the excuses that we tell ourselves, that we make up. That's what gets us down the war path. It's not the crime, it's the cover up.
It's the cover up.
Yeah.
And so are there other things that also, because you say, it's that we feel like we're a failure at love. Can there be other things that bring this up in us, that type of behavior of the anger, that's not necessarily about feeling like we're a failure at love? Does that make sense?
Yeah, there are tons of things, and limiting beliefs were made up in our childhood by trauma and stuff. But in general, don't look back. We don't get anything good out of looking back, except if you do that one important exercise where you discover your limiting beliefs and how you're finding evidence for it. What I do is I go out and I create peace. So you can only win the war with peace, right? Mm-hmm. So I do, I jump into the ocean in the morning. I go for a jog. I do things that create peace and love inside me, so I have more of that to give. So that's where you can start immediately. By doing more, loving yourself, stop blaming yourself, forgiving yourself, practicing that. It all starts with you. So it's not about your love relationship. It's about your relationship with love. And once you figure that out, it also takes the blame away from him, and just realizing it's your insecurities talking. When your insecurities get behind the wheel and in the driver's seat of your life, you're going to go off a cliff, right? So you need to just practice noticing, okay, that's my insecurity. So I have a little monkey I call Sarah, and my clients really like this. So just notice when it's Sarah that's speaking and she's sitting here, and just feed her some bananas and say, that's okay. Hi, how are you? Okay, good to have you here, but I'm taking the driver's wheel. You're not driving my car, and you're not driving my life, right? So just notice when she comes up and be aware of it.
This is so important, and I love that we're talking about this right now, because just simple little things for us. Being aware is the first big step to being able to even change anything, right? And so many people go through their whole lives not being aware, not accepting responsibility. So therefore they can never change anything and get to that better place and make that stronger relationship and feel more confident in ourselves. So is there anything else that we should be talking about, Amanda, as far as this goes? Any other tips that you have for our listeners to help them break out of these patterns?
Yeah, you could start by saying, hello, my name is Amanda, and I'm a recovering angry wife. Like, start with honesty and just give yourself a break too. If anger really is an addiction, I mean, it's just a pattern that you have. And it's okay if you're going to be that way your entire life, but you don't have to be choosing the war path all the time. You can simply choose to go down the love path. You can choose to connect with your husband at any time. For example, if you're in bed trying to make love and it gets all weird, you can easily connect in that failure situation, which sometimes happens when we haven't made love in a while. There's a big pressure. Mm-hmm. By just talking really honestly in that moment, you create so much intimacy, and you really, really connect. So any failure around you is a chance to really connect and create intimacy. It doesn't have to be kind of a recipe or a big date night or romance. It can be anytime, anywhere you can create connection and intimacy. Like I can always go over and hug my husband all the time or make love to him. Like that's a choice I have. That's kind of a superpower we have as women, the breasts, right? So use that superpower. We can do that anytime. Our men are too afraid of that. They will never do it. We can do that. We can choose to make love anytime, metaphorically or in the sense of the word. And that really produces more love. It is like we're making it. Like love is, we're cultivating it. It grows when we make it. So just remember that instead of making war by bitching and moaning and complaining, which is a habit that just tends to run out of our mouth like we can't control it. So when that happens, what I actually do is I could come home and I'll have all this loving intention and I step in the door and I see some mess and all this bitchiness just comes out of my mouth and I just go over and say, sorry, honey, I didn't mean to say that. And I kiss him to stop talking. It's like, it's just a bad habit to be bitching and complaining all the time. And it's just stop talking, kiss him instead. That's my advice.
I think that's important to say because so many of us get into patterns. This is what I help my couples change are these patterns that we develop, and patterns become habits. And habits, the beauty of a habit is it can be broken and changed, and that's what I think you're talking about. And the more that you practice changing that. So if you know when you come home, you've been working all day and you're tired and you're frustrated already and you come home and the house is a disaster, that's a trigger for you. You can practice in your head beforehand, okay, here's how I really want to come through the door. And this is how I want to come across. And things start changing when you do that. And the more you do it, it becomes more of who you are. Right? It's that muscle that you build and you have to practice it.
Yeah, because we have a loving woman inside of us and we get so frustrated when she doesn't come out. Nobody wants to be angry and bitching and complaining. We hate ourselves for it. We really want to be that loving, vulnerable, connected woman that we are, and mother and wife. And that's the core of the problem, is when we feel like a failure at that. Yeah. We stay stuck being angry. And we're really angry at ourselves, like my kids already tell me. At 5, he says, "Oh, Mom, I know you're just angry at yourself."
It's good to teach them. You're right. It's good for them to learn. And I want to back up just for a quick second to something that you said a few minutes ago. You were talking about when you're intimate, when you're trying to be intimate with your partner. So maybe you're trying to have sex or you're in bed but you just can't for whatever reason. There's something there that's blocking you. And then you mentioned the word failure at that point and just kind of owning it. But I think it's also being vulnerable. Whether it's failure or vulnerability, it's showing your vulnerability and just saying, you know what, here's what's really going on in my head. I'm so sorry. But then what you said something right after that, and I thought that was so key. When you can be vulnerable with your partner or your squeeze, that makes it so that they want to help you. They want to love you more. They want to connect with you more because you're being human. You're being real. And we all have those moments where we feel inadequate or not good enough or like we're failing or we're being vulnerable. So that's an important topic that you brought up. And I think the more that we can be honest about how we're feeling and what we're experiencing, that opens up whole new opportunities to connect on a much higher level and a higher vibration to get through those together. And that's the beauty of being in a great relationship.
Yeah. And you could choose honesty at any time. We're just not used to it. You could be completely naked, transparent, honest, and vulnerable at any time. Because when you can create connection at any time, you can just cut the bullshit and just be honest.
Yeah.
And dig a little deeper because we don't always know what's going on inside of us, all right?
Right.
We're women. So it can be a little complicated to get down a few layers to find out.
It is. Yeah, we're so complicated. Men are not quite as complicated, but we are. I totally agree with you. So, Amanda, can you just really quick run down, because we have some new people who are watching the show right now. Can you run down the 3 tips the 3 steps that you talked about real quick?
Honesty, responsibility, and choice. And honesty, step 1 is about getting real about how you feel, and use honesty and vulnerability. Be able to look bad in order to feel good. So just be really honest. Fuck, I'm angry. I just want to kill him right now. Okay, I'm in revenge instead of defense. And just be honest about it. And just, that's the first step. And then number 2 is take responsibility. And that only requires you asking, why does he, for example, shut down? It just requires you to be able to see past your own hurt for just a split second to look at his perspective. As soon as you do that, you shift from feeling hurt and looking inside to yourself. You shift and look outward to him, and it releases you from being disempowered to being empowered. Mm-hmm. Like all of a sudden, right there, you have control over the situation. As soon as you take some responsibility, you're being empowered. And then choice. Like you're going to fail a million times, but just fail and recommit. That's a choice. Choosing love is a choice. So you're standing in a path, in a crossroad, and you can either go down the war path or the love path. It's a choice, right? So when you bitch and complain, you're choosing war. When you're honest and vulnerable and seeking connection and not getting in your own way of connection, then you're choosing the love path, right? So it's a choice.
Yeah, I love it. Amanda, how can we, because I know that there's going to be people who are like, wow, she's a bomb. I need her help. How can they find you? Where should they go?
Just write me on Facebook.
On Facebook. So Amanda.
Yeah, or call me up, or yeah.
And just so you all know, she's in Denmark. She lives in Denmark. And what time is it there right now?
It's we started at 10, so it's 10:30. But I have clients all over the world. I talk to women all over the world. I've only recently started talking to Danish people. So I'm in Australia, everywhere. So it's fine. No matter where you're from, we'll make it work.
Okay, awesome. So so Amanda, when we're done with this, I'd like you to go into Facebook and put in your link for people so you can click on that. And then I believe you have a free gift for our listeners.
Yes, I do a free stop fighting session. So you talk to me over the phone, and I promise you, I'll give you in those 30 minutes, I'll give you some takeaways that you can use to change from making war to making love. Within those 30 minutes, you'll have some tools to change your life going forward. Because I don't want you to be stuck at war for over 7 years like I was in front of my kids fighting. There's really no need to be stuck making war. It is a choice. Remember that when you're making war, it's the same energy. You need to be making love. That's why you're making the war. So the more love you make, the less war you make, and vice versa.
There you go. Boom. That's a good little quote right there. All right, Amanda, thank you so much for being here with us. You've shared some just truth bombs and great tips for so many of us that go through these stages of not being the women that we want to be. So not being the
loving woman and wife and mother that we are. That's what's really frustrating us. So that's the key.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. For all of you who are listening, you can find Amanda's information in the comments. And
I'll post it.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Midori. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Can't wait to see you again. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.